I'm Chris Williams from Cyclone Fanatic and a proud Iowa State graduate from the class of 2007. No one shows up like Iowa State fans. And Cyclones support Cyclones on and off the field. Your gift can provide scholarships to students, fund groundbreaking research. We could even drum up opportunities for the marching band. Visit MoveWhatMatters.com to learn how you can make an impact today.
This is a matchup for the ages. Body cuts a path straight to the paint, and she serves up a slam dunk. Oh, Body may have the win, but Frank really got the W on that play. That's gotta hurt.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Reaction Time presented by Fareway. I'm Jacqueline Cordova, and as always, joined by my co-host, Ben Visser. It is officially Big 12 Championship week. I feel like we've been talking about it all season somehow, and now it's here. So
I feel like we always do that with postseason stuff. Like, we just start talking about it at the beginning of the year because we know that's where we're going. We know that's the most important part of the season. So
yeah,
even at the beginning, you just end up talking about it.
You know, it's hard not to. And it's like, it's one of those where I think duels matter regardless. And I know there's work being done, right, to try and make the dual season matter just a little extra. How we talked about it, you know, Oklahoma State is going to be hosting that dual tournament. But until that starts to get in full swing and people start buying into it, it just really is truly March. And Paniro Johnson said it best this week in media availability. He said, at the end of the day, no matter if I went undefeated all season, it doesn't matter if I go and get pinned immediately in March. Or vice versa. You could have had a terrible season, but if you go and get some upsets and somehow you find yourself winning a title, then that's all that matters. That's all people are going to remember. So just kind of the name of the game right now. So, and now we're here and we're going to preview Tulsa. Big time for the Cyclones. They come in the defending champions, but unfortunately, as we've been talking about, they're not quite the favorite as of right now with the way brackets and seeding is all, with the way everything is currently predicted. The current team race is projected to be Oklahoma State winning the Big 12 championship with 134 team points, Northern Iowa with 125.5, and then Iowa State in third place with 107.5 points. And then I'm not going to get into the other ones, but
Yep.
that's kind of what the numbers are saying. That's what's predicted right now. I feel like that's pretty accurate of what I personally think is going to happen. Ben, thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think that's very likely going to be the case of how we're going to expect this to play out. That, it should be noted, is without bonus points. So that doesn't include Parker Keckeisen's extra points that he will score almost inevitably. And hopefully it doesn't count some Iowa State bonus points along the way too. So I don't really see a realistic path to victory for Iowa State unless they just wrestle out of their minds and both Oklahoma State and UNI have bad weekends. I think third place is a very fair expectation for Iowa State this weekend. It is, without a doubt, Oklahoma State, UNI, small gap, Iowa State, giant gap, everybody else. So, like, if someone is competing with Iowa State, that's when I would get nervous. Like, oh, wait, why is South Dakota State competing really well with Iowa State right now? Like, that shouldn't be happening. Iowa State has 2 number 1 seeds, has a few other high-ranked guys. Paniro Johnson's a 2 seed. So if you wrestle to seed or get real close to it, you're going to find yourself separated from the pack, quote unquote, and up there with the top dogs of the Big 12 this year, which are Oklahoma State and UNI. So it'll be interesting. Yeah, I think third is very, very reasonable for Iowa State right now.
Yeah, I agree. And again, I hate saying it, but like, given the season they've had, you have to be happy with it. And I will be happy if that's where Iowa State finishes. Of course, you want them to finish higher, but.
Yeah. Without Anthony Etchemendia, without Casey Swiderski, without Younger Bastida, without Christian Carroll, without, who was the 165-pounder that emerged, the freshman? Connor Uten. So you're without 5 guys who you expected to start, and I would bet money that Casey Swiderski and Anthony Etchemendia are number 1 seeds. I would bet that Younger Bastida is at worst a 1 or a 2 seed. It's either him or Wyatt Hendrickson, right? So that is tens of team points that you don't have just because of injuries. So I think if Iowa State had a full lineup this year, I think this would be an incredible team race. Like between Iowa State, UNI, and between Oklahoma State, UNI, and Iowa State, I think a truly incredible team race, like one for the ages. Unfortunately, that's not what we're getting. But I still think guys like Jacob Frost could go out there and do really good things for Iowa State. I think Paniro Johnson could go out there and do really good things for Iowa State. So while it's not the lineup that we all expected to have, it's one that I think could still do a lot of really good things.
Well, and this week during availability, Coach Stresser basically said, okay, where's the silver lining, right? When asked a question about what was his favorite part about the season, and a lot of it was just focused around having guys in the lineup that we probably weren't expecting to see and seeing how those guys have competed this season. So now it's like, again, March is where it matters, right? So let's see how they respond. Let's see how they're able to perform in the 2 toughest tournaments they're going to wrestle in all season. So I think there's still something to be said about how it'll be exciting to see how Daniel Herrera does, which we talked about last week. So I don't need to get into it again, besides when we talk about his actual bracket. And I mean, what the heck's going to happen at 197? And at the end of the day too, every point matters. This season at, I think it was the Missouri Duel, Will Feldkamp was in the house. They honored the team from last season at intermission, showed off their rings and stuff. It was great. Their mini replica team trophies. And I happened to be in Johnny's with Aiden and his dad, and Dresser talked about how Will Feldkamp, I think it was like 1 team point or something, 1 or 2 team points or something like that. I can't remember now. So truly, you can make a lot of impact even with just 1 team point at the tournament. So hopefully there's some upsets from some guys, and hopefully we can talk about those bright spots and matches that maybe we weren't predicting that Iowa State was going to win. But when we look at the actual brackets, I think before we get into individuals, what were your thoughts overall about allocations and just overall brackets? And specifically too, Iowa State has 2 buys. It's Aiden Riggins and is it MJ? Gosh.
It's MJ, yep.
Okay, and MJ Gaitan have first round buys.
Yeah, and MJ's first match will very likely be against Keegan O'Toole, so good luck to him. But talking about just all the automatic qualifiers and stuff like that, I think Iowa State and the Big 12 pretty much got exactly what I would have expected. One note that we were told by Andy Stubblefield, the Iowa State SID, yesterday, and Aiden has it up on the screen for those watching. The Big 12 lost 2 allocations at 149 and lost 1 allocation at 157. So right now there are 4 automatic qualifying spots up for grabs at 149 and 6 automatic qualifying spots up for grab at 157. The reason that happened is some guys who qualified for a spot will not be wrestling in the tournament due to injury or other circumstances. But so when you have a guy that qualifies and is not able to wrestle, you lose that automatic qualifying spot. So I don't think that won't matter. I know for a fact that won't matter for Iowa State. Even if Paniro somehow doesn't finish in the top 4, he will get an at-large spot for the NCAA tournament. Same thing at 157. Even if Cody Chittum, for some reason, doesn't finish in the top 6, he will still get an automatic or at-large spot. So it's just a note to know that, okay, that's a thing that happened, but other than that, should be fine. I think 285 and Daniel Herrera, that hurts. Only having 4 automatic qualifying spots. He's going to have to wrestle a great tournament. And we'll get into his bracket. I think there's a path for him to finish in the top 4. But oh boy, he's gonna have to do some work in that. Everyone else, I think, 174 only having 6 automatic qualifying spots for MJ Gaitan. He's the 7th seed. He's gonna have to out wrestle his seed to get one. I think he can do that. But when your first match is against Keegan O'Toole, probably, it's really hard.
That's rough.
That's a really hard tournament. Same thing with Aiden Riggins. He's the 8th seed. He'd have to out wrestle his seed. There are 6 automatic qualifying spots in 165. Could he do it? Sure, he could. But like when you're the 8th seed, we'll talk about this with Kysen Terukina, you get the number 1 seed immediately. So life is really hard when you're a low seed.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think just right off the bat, my first thought was Daniel Herrera just has a really hard path to earn his ticket to the national tournament. The other ones I didn't feel as worried about. So that one's going to be tough. But like you said, it's just kind of the name of the game, unfortunately, sometimes with these. And man, it just sucks some people aren't going to be competing, unfortunate for OSU. But no, I agree. I echo everything you just said about that. So, which I feel like we can definitely just start at the top. Kysen Terukina is going to be back in action, which we've known. Coach was pretty clear that when it came down to Kysen, he was going to be back for the Big 12s. And when we spoke with him, he said he feels great. He's feeling healthy. He says he's done some great work with Tim Wiesner, their trainer. And like we said, I was surprised he got the number 8 seed. That's great. Glad to see that when the committee sat down to decide how they were going to do this is where they felt he fit. But like Ben mentioned, that means Kysen's going to get through his first match against Tristan Daughtry with North Dakota State. Assuming he wins, he will immediately go against Richie Figueroa from Arizona State. And I did text Andy to confirm that our research was correct. These two have never wrestled. They have managed to miss each other, from one being injured to the other one being injured, like literally just taking turns. So that makes things a little extra interesting. Mm-hmm. Kysen this week shared that he seems confident. He said, This is what you want. You want to get the best. And he said he feels he can beat him. I want to know your thoughts when he says that, and then I'll share mine.
Yeah. I like his confidence. I think it's great for wrestlers to have confidence. Even if the rest of us don't believe it, as long as he believes it, that's great. I will say that I do believe both him and Dresser that his discipline has been ratcheted up a notch. It's one thing Dresser said the entire time, like, it just kind of sucks for him because he hasn't been rewarded with his great discipline. Like, this is the first year he's had his mind right, and he's done things right on and off the mat, and he just hasn't seen the mat. And I think, as unfortunate as it is, I think his injury may have helped him with that, because he said it. He's like, he was in with Tim Wiesner like 2 to 3 times a day getting his knee rehabbed. So that instills discipline. Like, he has to do that if he has any chance at seeing the mat. So because of that, I think that's probably helped with his discipline. And I'm interested to see how that translates to the tournament now. And I'm really glad that Kysen's not one of the guys that got a bye, because he gets a match under his belt before he goes and wrestles Richie Figueroa. Mm-hmm. And do I think he can beat him? Yes, there is an outside chance. I will point to the Iowa State-Arizona State dual meet last year when Richie wrestled Caleb Feasley, who was wrestling for an injured Kysen last year. And Feasley lost 7-5. And I remember that match. Feasley got him gassed. Like, Richie was breathing hard. And if that match lasted another minute, there's a decent chance that Caleb Feasley finds a way to win it. Mm-hmm. So maybe it was either last year or 2 years ago that happened. But regardless, so there's that path that Kysen can beat Richie. Richie's not unbeatable. It's kind of like 125 last year. There was no top dog at 125. Mm-hmm. And it's the same case this year, at least in the Big 12. So I think there's a path for him to win. I think it's going to be really difficult, especially coming off an injury where you haven't really seen the mat since December.
Yeah, I agree. Richard Figueroa is his full name, but known as Richie. Richie's one of the Arizona State wrestlers that I really like. I really like him and Colton Schultz. And during the summer when it was like, oh yeah, guys are moving, Iowa was buying guys. There was a rumor that Richie was going to be one of them, that Iowa was trying to get to come over to the dark side. And I was going to be really upset about that. So when it was like confirmed, like, no, Richie Figueroa is staying at Arizona State, I was like, thank God. But like you said, I think I find myself having a soft spot and maybe feeling overly confident that Kysen could. It's really hard to fully gauge because, like we've said, we just haven't seen him in a live match in a long time. And I know he competed in December, but right, it was in December. He wrestled at the tournaments the dual tournaments they had, but I just don't think they give me enough to feel out what we're going to get from him. I think just who I am as a person, I tend to lean on the emotionally driven side. This is Kysen's last chance. Like, there's no extra year of eligibility. I haven't asked him what his future plans are, but I don't feel 100% confident it has anything to do necessarily with wrestling. So, like, this is it. This is your last chance. And I feel like that always adds an extra flair to guys, right? Like, the pressure's different. Kyven Gadsden has always talked to... I'm tripping over my words. He's always had a lot of really great things to say about what it feels like when you go into like your final matches and the concept of wrestling free. So I always want to lean on that side of how guys approach these competitions. So I'm really hoping that, because Kysen not only got injured, he had last year plagued with personal things going on. Well, now this is it. Like, you know, you don't just get to go out in Hilton and say, okay, at least I got to experience a win in Hilton. Like, he is truly just like, this is it. So I'm really hoping he goes out there and truly feels as good as he's saying and throws it out there. Can he beat Richie? I think he can. He's pulled upsets in the past. We've seen him wrestle super well and wrestle like a top guy. And last season we talked extensively about how we thought he could have easily been a top guy, like a top 3 guy in the weight, because of just how much up for grabs it was. And again, unfortunately, that wasn't the case since he didn't really compete. But yeah, it's just, I think it's a mixed bag, because how often do we find ourselves talking about a guy who didn't compete really much all season and is about to enter the mat for the first time in Tulsa?
Yeah, no, it's tough. And then looking at, let's assume that he loses to Richie.
Right.
His path on the backside of the bracket is very doable. Like, I think he has a very good chance. All he needs to do is finish 7th to earn an automatic qualifying spot. I would be pretty surprised if that didn't happen. I think there's a very clear path for that to happen, because let's assume he loses. He either gets Bubba Wright from Air Force or Bridger Ricks from Utah Valley. I'm quite positive if he's healthy. If he's as healthy and feeling as good as he says he is, he wins either of those matches easily. Then he either gets Tanner Jordan, likely, or Troy Spratley in that next match. Those are going to be tougher matches, but he can lose that, and then he finds himself in the 7th and 8th place match, and then he wrestles whoever else wrestles back. So, like, as long as there's not some crazy upset where Steve O'Poulin or Richie Figueroa loses later, Kysen's going to wrestle the other 7 seed, probably Trevor Anderson from Northern Iowa, who he can beat pretty easily. So, I like his path for 7th place, at bare minimum 7th place finish. I think he can finish higher than that, even on the backside of the bracket. I don't see... Steve O'Poulin's very good, so I'm not going to discredit that. But outside of Steve O'Poulin and Richie Figueroa, there's no reason Kysen couldn't finish 3rd, 4th, 5th, somewhere in that range.
Yeah, I agree. I was looking up what his record is against the Troy Spratley, and then looking up Steve-O, because I don't even remember the last time they would have met.
I don't know that Steve O'Poulin and Kysen have wrestled.
I was gonna say, I don't think they have. Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's gonna be such an interesting guy to cover. Because like we said, I can't think of a time we've had to talk about a guy who hasn't wrestled all season like this.
He's a massive unknown Who knows? Only he knows how good he feels, and he says he feels really good. So I'm going to take him for his word, and we'll find out.
And I mean, Dresser said it right. Like, there's not a single guy going into this weekend, except maybe Kysen Terukina, I guess, who truly is not beat up.
Yep.
Because these guys do take a beating all season. So it's going to be really interesting. But I'm excited. I think it'll be fun. It's obviously, like I said, it's one of those where I look forward to being there and telling the story of like, okay, how do you end your career before maybe you pack your bags and head back to Hawaii? Who knows? Who knows what his future entails? But
escape these cold, harsh, windy Iowa winters.
yeah, I think they traveled Wednesday, I think is what Coach said, or Thursday. Who knows?
Yeah.
But anyways, on the other side of things, Iowa State's most promising wrestler of the weekend, Evan Frost, the number 1 seed. I'm excited for Evan. Last year caused me some gray hair having to watch him wrestle Dayton Fix, who is a very talented wrestler, but just a lot of questionable calls. And Evan was just so close. He was so close in both times. And I don't know. I think Evan's doing it. I think Evan's going to win it.
I agree. I think Evan has an incredibly clear path to win it. He's for sure making the finals. I would be shocked if he didn't make the finals. Again, that assumes injury. Assuming he's healthy, I'd be shocked if he didn't make the finals. Dresser said that Evan's weight has been on point in the last month or two. He's making weight the right way. He's doing things the right way. We all know how hard he works, so he's got that going for him. And all he does is win. Like, that's just what he does. So I think the finals are almost as close of a lock as you can get in wrestling. And then in the finals, he probably gets either Julian Farber from Northern Iowa or Dominic Serrano from Northern Colorado. And I'll be honest, I have not seen Serrano wrestle. So I don't know what he does or how good he is, but he's the 2 seed. He's 19-2, so he's probably pretty darn good. But if Julian Farber makes the finals, give me Evan Frost 10 times out of 10. No offense to Julian Farber, but like Evan Frost is that dude. So
yeah,
I think he has a clear path to be a Big 12 champion. And it'd be honestly a little bit disappointing if it didn't happen because he's a top 3 guy in the nation right now. He's a guy that Jackie and I have talked about being a national title contender. Yeah. So if we're saying that, I think Big 12 title contender is almost a given. And then how far can you go come nationals?
Yeah, I'm excited to see how he does. Like I said, I think Dayton Fix being, Dayton Fix, it was easy for Evan to still be like overshadowed and be underestimated. And now this season, it still kind of feels the same. It still feels like he's somehow underestimated despite he's 16-2. He's the number 1 seed. So
hasn't lost since December.
Yeah. So it's crazy. But I mean, that's also his personality, right? This is probably the most we've made him talk is this season.
Yeah,
and even then, now that Jacob's in the lineup, Jacob's had to do a lot more talking.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm excited for him. Like I said, if there's anything I feel confident about is that I feel pretty confident that Evan Frost can be a Big 12 champion. So
yep, agreed.
And of course, you can't talk about Evan without Jacob. Jacob's one of those guys that we technically weren't supposed to see in the lineup. He's the number 3 seed. Really excited for him to be in there. I think it'll be fun for him and Evan, I'm sure, to be able to go into this competing together. I'm sure they have to go about it a little different, just in that they'll probably be wrestling at the same time, especially on Saturday, with how crazy those first sessions are. And I'm excited to see just how they perform. Dresser talks about how the best thing they have with each other is having each other as a sounding board and as guys they can compete with, just push each other, whether that's in their training or their wrestling. I had the chance to talk with their mom, and I had a very long conversation about just how, maybe that is truly like their most, their quality, like their strongest quality is their friendship, their relationship together. And honestly, I feel like, it makes them better wrestlers because you get to have your guy out there. So I'm excited, except I do think Jacob doesn't have the easiest path to becoming a Big 12 champion, just because some of those guys at 141 pounds are pretty good, like Andrew Alira is from Northern Colorado, who's the number 1 seed.
Yep. Yeah, and Jacob Frost has a pretty clear path to the semifinals, His first round match will be pretty easy. Josh Edmond is his second round match, who I think he won by major decision, right? He beat him pretty good, if I remember right. And then semifinal matches against Cal Happel, which another one of those matches where if you give Jacob Frost, if Jacob Frost cuts him correctly, he probably wins that match.
Yeah.
So one of those things where early in their careers, Cal Happel beat Frost by bonus points at least once, and I think a couple of times. So we're seeing Frost start to get a little bit more and a little bit more. Can he get over the Cal Happel hump? And then if he does, he will very, very likely get Andrew Alirez in the finals, which will be very difficult. Alirez is a national champion. I would not expect Frost to win that match, but hey, anything can happen. It's March. We've seen really weird things happen. So wouldn't expect it, but I think a second place finish for Frost is very much on the table. And you know what? If he loses to Happel, he's still going to qualify. It wouldn't be the end of the world. He still has a chance to wrestle back and finish third. But I think that Cal Happel match is really going to be the one that I'm going to be watching, because that's going to tell me a lot about where Jacob Frost is going as we continue into NCAAs.
Yeah, and I mean, what a thorn in everyone's side is Cal Happel, right? Like he was the same way with Anthony, and Anthony finally, got that win when it mattered, and that was great. So, I mean, Jacob can do it. I think he can do it. I think he's definitely someone who can go and win. But like you said, Andrew Alirez is just a difficult one. But excited to see how he does. Another surprising seed was looking at Cody Chittum, who got the number 1 seed.
Yeah. How about that?
Yeah, I did think the Missouri loss was going to bite him in the butt, but it didn't. He's still the number 1 seed, so.
Yeah, I don't know who seeded this, but I think all Iowa State fans, and especially Cody Chittum, owe them a debt of gratitude. Because I'm on the same page as you, I would have had Caleb Fish and Ryder Downey as the 1 and 2 seeds, and then I would have thrown Cody Chittum probably as the 3 seed. Obviously, Cody Chittum has beaten both Caleb Fish and Ryder Downey, and he beat Kobe Siebrecht. So he's beaten all those top 4 guys. But to lose your last match against an unranked guy and a guy who's currently seeded number 7, that hurts. Like, it's just, you can't have that happen. Unfortunately, it did. Luckily for Chittum, it seems to have not impacted his seeding at all. So he got lucky in that regard. And Dresser said it was kind of a wake-up call for him. That Cody thought he could cut weight his way. And we've heard several times this season about how Cody is very particular about how things are done and is a little bit of a psycho. So I'm wondering if he just didn't develop a bad habit or two in his regiment. But it sounds like Dresser and the coaching staff have re-instilled in him the importance of cutting weight the right way. And Dresser said, Dresser said it yesterday, but last week Chittum came to him after a practice and said, "Wow, I feel really good." And Dresser was like, "Yeah, that's because you're cutting weight the right way now." So it sounds like for the last month or so, Chittum hasn't been cutting weight the right way, but he got away with it for the most part, except for the UNI match. Now that he's cutting weight the right way, I'm really excited to see how he can do in this tournament. He's a guy that we've seen been able to put up bonus points. He can do some really fun things on the wrestling map. His path to the finals is pretty clear. I don't see a world where he doesn't make the finals, assuming he's cutting weight the right way, right? Assuming he's feeling good. I think he's a finalist for sure. And then he either gets Caleb Fish or Ryder Downey, which that's going to be a really good match. If you're just a wrestling fan if you're not just an Iowa State fan and you like the sport of wrestling as a whole and aren't just here to support Iowa State fans, that semifinal match between Ryder Downey and Caleb Fish will be excellent. That'll be must-see TV for me. Just because they wrestled earlier in the year, Caleb Fish won it. It was a really close match. So that match will be really good. And then Chittum and whoever, either Ryder Downey or Cody Fish, that'll be a great match. Because it was earlier too. Chittum beat both of them. All of them were great matches. So I think all the semifinal matches will be great. And the finals match, again, will be must-see TV.
Yeah, I feel like when you hear Cody Chittum and then not cutting weight, right, or just not having the best habits for a month, I'm curious what that looks like, just because he is so disciplined in how he does things and how he likes to do things.
Yep.
So I am curious what that specifically looked like. I doubt we'll ever know, but that's all right. I have full confidence that Cody Chittum can go and win a title, but I also think Cody Chittum can do things that end up putting him in really crappy situations. And then we see him fall to the back. And then suddenly it's like, oh, you're like wrestling for seventh. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I believe he can win it all and also find himself losing it all somehow. And I hate feeling that way.
Yeah.
Because I really like Cody Chittum and I want that for him. But like you said, I'm really excited for that. It should be a fun one. And selfishly, I love just having you and I in there. And I love the idea of having these potential title matches being Iowa State and UNI matches. But that's just the selfish in me.
Yeah.
Rolling back to 149, Paniro Johnson is making his return to the tournament, which I think is a big storyline when it comes to looking at Iowa State. Obviously, the last time Paniro was there, he won a Big 12 championship. And then, as we all know, he was out because of the gambling stuff. And now he gets to come back and he says he's feeling good. Thankfully, like he said, he hasn't been someone who's had to deal with too much injury or anything crazy like that. He's had a good season. He's 18-3, which is great. He's the number 2 seed. I am excited to see Paniro's maturity in the tournament because I think that is the biggest thing that determines how Paniro Johnson's going to do. So that's kind of where I'm at with him. I'm excited for him to be back. I thought he was really great in availability. He talked a lot about, like I said in the beginning, he talked a lot about what March means and what it can mean for your season. And then he talked a lot about how he's looking at it as, okay, I have to win 5 matches. When's like, how many times in my life have I won 5 in a row? And I think that's a really good mindset to have. It's a really good approach to it. I feel like it truly feeds into the, oh, I only take it 1 match at a time, or I'm only focused on my next opponent. I feel like when guys say that, I believe they want to believe that, but I don't believe them half the time. But
Nope,
like
me
when
either.
when Paniro puts it into that type of perspective, I think that's a really fair question. How many times have I won 5 matches in a row? Plenty of guys have done that. Plenty of these Iowa State guys have done that. So why not do it now? You know? Give me your thoughts on how you're feeling about Paniro.
I think he does a fine draw. He's the 2 seed. If he should be the 1 seed, not because of resume, Colin Robuto beat him, but because Paniro should have beaten Colin Robuto. In that UNI Iowa State dual meet, there was no reason for Paniro to lose that match. He was up big, got gassed, seemed to panic, and found a way to lose. So I think Paniro, if he's wrestling well, and like we know he can, I think he has another Big 12 title on deck. I think he'll be a 2-time Big 12 champion after this next week. Just because I know he's better than Colin Robuto. I know he's better than Willie McDougald, who I think he nearly beat my major decision. And I don't think anyone else in his bracket, in the lower half of the bracket, will scare him. I don't think anyone could compete with him. So it's just Willie, who we've seen him beat handily. And then it's Colin Robuto, who he was beating handily and then panicked. So as long as he keeps his head on straight, as long as weight cuts or injuries or something weird doesn't happen, I think he has a great chance of being at capturing another Big 12 championship.
Yeah, I agree. And I thought it was really, again, great week with Paniro this week. I enjoyed when he talked about how when you're in matches, I don't think he specifically said, oh, the UNI match, but we know that's what he's talking about. He talked about like not letting the crowd win, not letting the refs win, right? So, which I've
trust in your training.
Yeah. Buzzword.
Don't let yourself be tired. Just trust your training. Keep going.
And again, despite them being buzzwords that I know Dresser has said before, I think they're very real when it comes to Paniro. You can't let an angry UNI crowd get to you. You
or coach. Or very animated UNI coach.
Yeah. Shout out to Schwab on that one. And you can't you can't let the refs be in a position to, I hate to say this, but to take a match away from you. I hate saying that because I hate playing the ref card, but it happens, right?
Yep.
Looking back at Evan Frost and Dayton Fitz.
Yep.
But I think Dresser gives him tough love, and it seems to be something that Paniro needs.
Yep.
And Paniro kind of like said that when he was talking about it. But I also appreciated when he kind of brought it all back, right? And he said that Dresser talked about like when he lost a match when going and finishing his final season, I think it was, he was referencing.
Yep.
I think he lost his very last match, and then he went and won a title.
Yep. Lost his last match of the regular season.
Yep.
And then went on to win an NCAA championship. So
I think it's important for Paniro to hear those things and see those things from like living and breathing people in his corner. So I'm excited. I'm very excited for him to be back because, again, I think it's a really cool story to see Paniro having gone through the season that he did last year, being sidelined with his season, having to sit out, and then being able to come back, having the weird season he's had with the 3 different weight changes, and then now it's go time. So I'm excited for him. I think it'll be interesting to see. I really hope it is him and Colin in that championship match because it'll be electric. So then, yeah, like we said, Aiden Riggins has a bye. That sucks. And if you're curious, buys are random. We had, 2-3 seasons ago? It was like Iowa State had like 6 freaking buys, and it sucked.
2 years ago, it was the reason Missouri beat Iowa State. I am convinced of that to this day. Iowa State would have won the Big 12 championship if the buys had been distributed evenly, but Missouri had like all first round matches, and Iowa State had 6 buys, including David Carr, and I think Younger. They both had buys, so that's several bonus points that you're missing out on. And then Keegan O'Toole gets to pin 3 guys in a row to get to the championship. Like, what are we doing here? So, yes, Aiden is one of the guys with buys, and unfortunately for him, he gets Terrell Barraclaw from Utah Valley, who's 18-1 and the number 1 seed in the first round. So he will very likely be going to the backside of the tournament almost immediately.
Yeah, and every year when we look at brackets, I always kind of pick like, who do I think will just do better in the back of the bracket? I think Aiden Riggins will have a nice time. I think he needs those matches. I think he can win some points for Iowa State. And hey, he's talked about it every time as he goes. Every match he gets more confidence. Well, here you go. So I'm curious to see how he does. He got the number 8 seed. Again, weirdly random that him and MJ Gaitan have buys. Unfortunately, MJ Gaitan does have to wrestle Keegan O'Toole for his first match after sitting out with his bye. I'm curious how MJ does in this match. Keegan did not wrestle in the Missouri duel at the end of the season, so this will be the first time MJ has to wrestle him. Unfortunately, Keegan O'Toole's kind of a terror, so I think it'll be a good measuring stick. That's what I'm looking forward to.
A terror is an understatement, unfortunately. Keegan O'Toole is the next best thing to David Carr, who is, we all know as Iowa State fans, a very, very good wrestler. And I do want to say that Keegan O'Toole did wrestle against Iowa State, except Cade Schmidt was the one who wrestled for Iowa State, not MJ Gaitan. Cade Schmidt got pinned, which is incredibly unsurprising. Not because of Cade Schmidt. Cade Schmidt, I'm sure, is a fine wrestler, but
why did I think he didn't wrestle?
Unbelievable. Probably because he didn't wrestle MJ.
Neither here nor there.
Yeah. And then I do want to reverse a little bit to 165 and Aiden Riggins just to talk about the backside of the bracket. His first match would likely be against Cooper Voorhees from Wyoming or Daniel Manabog from Cal Baptist. So that's one I do think he wins. That's one of those team points where you can find. Unfortunately, after that, it's probably Jack Thompson or Nico Ruiz, who he lost to Jack Thompson here against you and I. So he's going to have to out-wrestle. Again, we knew this. He's going to have to out-wrestle his seed to try to earn an NCAA allocation. And I don't think Jack Thompson's unbeatable for him. I think he can win. It's just that when you're an 8 seed, life is hard. You have to do some special things to make it. And then, yes, MJ Gaitan is going to be in for a rough time with his first match against Keegan O'Toole. And then after that, I think he has some very winnable matches. Actually, I think all of his matches are winnable against after that. You got Jared Simo, a potential opponent, Kay DeVos, potential opponent, and Riley Davis. I think all of those are winnable opponents for him. I think everyone except Keegan O'Toole and Dean Amity, very winnable for MJ. Like, third place is on the table for him. That sounds a little homerish. I get it. You can call me a homer. That's fine. But we've seen what MJ can do. And Dresser said it. Coaches are smart people, and they've adjusted, and they've had the wrestlers adjust to how MJ wrestles. So now it's up to MJ to make those adjustments back. How do you win when you know everyone is defending against a headlock, right? Because MJ said it several times. All I need is a head and an arm, and I think I can get a pin. So when guys aren't giving you their head and their arm, how do you find ways to win? I think he has that ability. He has that in him. I know he's a 7 seed, but he has a path to being a third place finisher in the Big 12 championships.
Well, and I think if MJ does wrestle for third and he finishes third, I think he fits the like cheesy, like, you know, that favorite headline we love to talk about when it comes to guys who finish third. The toughest guys wrestle for third.
Yep.
And it's cheesy because it's used so much, but it's not. I mean, it is really hard. Like we've said, once you're in the back of the bracket, it is a gauntlet. You are wrestling so much to get there. So when you do, yeah, you really were one of the toughest guys there, because when you're in the championship match, you just coasted right through your matches, right? What is it? What was it? Paniro said you
gotta win 5 matches. Yep,
no big deal. So I, in a weird way, think that would do a lot for MJ Gaitan. Just with the season he's had, the growth he's had to have as he tries to learn how to have a new style, so that he isn't just constantly getting figured out the way he has been a little bit there. So I don't know.
And I do want to say that there are 6 allocations at 174, so he just needs to wrestle in the 5th and 6th place match, and he'll earn an NCAA qualifying bid. If he wrestles for 7th, he's going to have to pray for an at-large, and that's not a place that I want him to be.
Yeah. I hope that MJ's the guy who looks back at how last year went, and then everything he's been able to learn this season and uses it to like fuel him.
He was a round of 12 guy last year. He's 1 match away from being an All-American. We know he's a good wrestler.
And you know that drove him nuts. I mean, it drives anyone nuts, right? But like, just the fire you see in him sometimes, it has to be with him all the time. Just like I'm sure Cody Chittum constantly thinks about the way he finished March last year. So I think it'll be an interesting one. And then let's see, what do we got? 184, Parker Keckeisen. Can't wait for you to be a Big 12 champion.
Yeah, you don't think Dustin Plott can do it?
No.
No, absolutely not.
I sure hope not.
There's not a chance in the world that Dustin Plott can compete with Parker Keckeisen. We've seen it like 6 or 7 times now, and every time Oklahoma State fans seem to find a delusion where Dustin Plott can win, and then Parker Keckeisen beats him by major decisions. Like, what are we doing here? Like, Oklahoma State fans, if there's any Oklahoma State fans listening to this right now, I'm telling you, Dustin Plott does not have a chance.
Just clip that, Aiden. I'll share it on my own Twitter. I think I got a few Oklahoma State fans. Ken Evan Bachman, who got the number 4 seed, who's also wrestling in his final conference championship. Can he get through his bracket to wrestle Parker Keckeisen in the semifinals match?
For sure. Yeah, I think he has a clear path to wrestle Keckeisen in the semifinal match. He has the first round match against Gage Musser. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. From Air Force. I think that's a pretty convincing win. And then DeAnthony Parker Jr. from Oklahoma. And I was just going to look up real quick what happened in that dual meet earlier this year. I don't know if they wrestled. I feel like someone else wrestled.
Yeah, I don't think they did.
184. Bachman wrestled Eli Cordy of Oklahoma.
I was going to say, I don't think Oklahoma put him out in that duel.
No, they didn't. So we have not seen that one. We'll see. I've not seen much of DeAnthony Parker this year. So I think that could be a very good match. I like Bachman. I like the seniority of it all. I like that he's just a really gritty guy. I think gritty guys do really well in tournaments because they're not flashy and they can't rely on their insane athleticism to do things. So they just have to buckle down and do hard things. And winning a tournament's hard, so they're used to doing hard things, is my point. And so I like Bachman in that. And then, yeah, if he wins that match, he gets his good old friend Parker Keckeisen, which will be tough.
I really like Bachman. I think he's been such a great addition for Iowa State. I wish he hadn't had to deal with injuries. Obviously, again, it's the name of the game, right? It's the theme of the year. But like you said, he's a gritty guy. I think it should be fun. But yeah, unfortunately, he is on the same side of the bracket as Parker Keckeisen. So I don't have any expectations, and that's not a good or bad thing. I think Evans just had an up and down year. I think he's very capable of doing good things. I'd have to go back and look again how he's performed in the past at the tournament. I don't know if you remember off the top of your head.
I don't remember if it was in the Big 12 tournament, but he beat Younger Bastida one time.
Yes, we cannot forget that. So he's finished 5th place, I believe, when he was at Utah Valley, was it? Did I make that up?
Yeah, it would have been Utah Valley.
Yeah. So he's been there, it's at least one of those where you're like, yeah, he's been in Tulsa. He's competed in that tournament. So this isn't new to him. He's just in a different singlet. So,
Yep.
No, I think it'll be a good little run there. Like I said, this is his final tournament. His career is coming to an end. So again, wrestle free. What do you have to lose?
Yeah, wrestle free. There's 7 allocations, 184. I think he gets one of those pretty easily. And again, if not, he's one of those that will get an at-large if he somehow finishes outside of the top 7. So, but I would be pretty shocked if he's healthy and finishes outside of the top 7. That would be very surprising to me.
I agree. 197, obviously been an interesting weight for Iowa State. I just, Nathan Schon, he got the 6th seed. He is going up against Jacob, how do you say his last name? Meisner?
Meisner is how I'd say
Meisner, from Arizona State. I mean, I think Nate is favored, obviously, in this matchup, so he should win his first one. And then from there, you have Wyatt Volker from UNI, who's the number 3 seed. Again, just go out there and score some points for Iowa State is kind of where I'm at with that one. Have some fun. What were the allocations for this one?
4.
4? Oh, okay.
It's going to be real tough for him to get the top 4.
Yeah, it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
Don't love that.
He beat Meisner earlier this year, 7-4. Okay. So he does have that win under his belt. Match. Yeah. Then Wyatt Volker's, he will lose that one, unfortunately. Then
make some noise.
Of the bracket.
Yeah, say go make some noise back there.
Yep. Yeah. No, it'll be tough. He's got a tough road to hoe. I'm looking over everyone again. I don't see a world where he unfortunately finishes in the top 4 unless people get injured. That happens. People get injured in these tournaments, have to injury default out, and then you find yourself wrestling in a 3rd place match. That's happened before. It could happen here. But Nate Schoen's going to need some things to go his way, and he can make things go his way. He's a good wrestler. He was a highly rated recruit at one point. He's dealt with injuries, unfortunately for him, but at one point he was a highly rated recruit. He can do things. Why not now?
He's been fun to watch. Like, I think he's so scrappy. Like, he's just like launching his body all over the mat. Those mat returns are beautiful. I freaking love watching those. Like, yeah, I think he's a fun guy to watch. I actually have really enjoyed watching him this season, especially because it's one of those where there's just really no expectations, right? There's not that type of pressure where I'm like, Evan Frost can't lose a match type of vibe. Like, I'm just having fun watching Nate do things. So I'm excited to see how he handles the tournament. Again, a guy you didn't expect to see, and suddenly here he is. So that'll be fun. And then you have Daniel Herrera. I'm curious how he's feeling, especially because, how old is he? 19?
Yeah.
Probably.
Yep.
Definitely didn't know he'd be wrestling. But I think the really good thing about about Daniel Herrera is that we've seen him get better every match. Occasionally, he'll make his freshman mistakes. That's going to happen. But I feel like because he's been able to already have a match against Wyatt Hendrickson, have a match against Colton Schultz, that is just sets him up to be ready to go into something like this, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know that he's going to necessarily go find himself winning any of those. He's on the same side of the bracket. Aiden has it up on the screen if you haven't. You haven't been paying attention, but he's on the same side as Colton Schultz, which I think is kind of best case scenario instead of being on the same side as Wyatt Hendrickson.
Yeah,
so
this
that's
is
a
one
plus.
of those situations where being a 6 seed is way better than being a 4 seed. Way better.
So glad for that. His first match. So Daniel Herrera is a number 6 seed if you hadn't seen that, and so his first match is against North Dakota State. Andrew Blackburn forced. Am I saying that right?
Yep, forced.
I don't have it right in front of me. He did win this match.
He won that one. Yep, he won it pretty handily.
So feel good about that. But then he automatically goes into that Lance Runyon from UNI, who's the number 3 seed. How do you feel about that?
So we saw Daniel Herrera, what was that, a couple weeks ago, go out there and beat Lance Runyon. And it didn't look like a fluke. It didn't look like Daniel Herrera got really lucky in that match. It looked like he belonged in that match. I think Daniel Herrera's size is a huge advantage in that match. Obviously, Lance Runyon is a former 174-pounder who's bumped up to heavyweight this year.
That's crazy.
That's nuts. So Lance is one of those guys who's giving up a bunch of weight, but is very athletic, very quick. So what we saw in that match is what I would like to see again from Herrera. Use your size. If Lance gets in on a shot, put your full weight on the guy and run around him. That's how Colton Schultz gets like 99% of his takedowns. Is someone shoots a bad shot on him and just crushes them and gets a takedown. That's what I want to see from Daniel Herrera again. I'm sure Lance Runyon will make some adjustments. He's a very good wrestler. But we've seen Daniel be able to fire off his own shots. Use your size. That's what I want to see. Get Lance Runyon really tired. And see if you can't win that match in the third period. Because we've seen Herrera's gas tank be pretty darn good. He was pushing around Colton Schultz in that third period. Colton Schultz is likely going to be an Olympian at the point in Greco-Roman. So Herrera's gas tank is something that I think he could use in his favor. And I don't know that he beats Lance Runyon again, but I think it's definitely not out of the question. I think he can win. And then if he does, then he gets Colton Schultz most likely. And as good as that third period was, I don't know that I see a world where he beats Colton Schultz, just because Colton Schultz is so good at winning those close matches because he's so hard to take down. Like, younger Bastida took him down because he's younger Bastida. But outside of that, if you're not younger Wyatt Hendrickson, Gable Stevenson, or Greg Kirkfleet, I don't know that you're taking down. I really don't. I don't think you're taking down Colton Schultz. So that's going to be tough for him. And then he goes to the backside of the bracket where, again, there's only 4 automatic qualifying spots at heavyweight. As the 6th seed, you have to out-wrestle your seed. And I think, assuming he goes to the backside of the bracket against Colton Schultz, or even against Lance Runyon, it doesn't really matter. He'll have to wrestle either Juan Mora from Oklahoma or Seth Nitzel from Missouri. 2 guys he's lost to this year, but 2 guys that he was ranked above for most of the year. So unfortunate matches for him that he lost, but matches that people who do rankings think that he's actually better than those people. And when you watch those matches, like, oh yeah, there's a very clear path for Herrera to win those matches. Mm-hmm. So Herrera has a chance to get to that 3rd place match and wrestle for 3rd or 4th. It's going to take a Herculean effort. Like, Daniel Herrera is one of the only guys on this roster who is in this situation where he has a Herculean task ahead of him to qualify and has a realistic chance at qualifying. Like, Nate Schon, I guess, can, but I think that's more unrealistic. Herrera is realistic, and it's going to be really, really hard for him to do it. Mm-hmm. But I think he can.
I think he can too. Just because, like you said, in those matches he's lost, besides when you look at how he competed against Wyatt Hendrickson and Colton Schultz, like, he's just like right there. Mm-hmm. He is so close. It's just a matter of like mat savviness, right? Or experience. Yep. So I don't know. It's just one of those where, yeah, like you said, he really is the only one who isn't predicted to get an allocation, but very well can wrestle to steal one away from Seth. I forgot his last name already after Aiden moved the...
Nitzel.
Yes, I was going to say. It makes me think of... I know it's Seth Stetzel. So that's who I keep thinking of. No, I think Daniel Herrera can definitely do it. But I think, unfortunately, being so young and having maybe a higher chance of making little mistakes to cost him matches, that could be his Achilles heel there. So,
yeah, but he also might be young enough to not know the difference between a high pressure moment and a low pressure moment, where he just lets something loose and it works for him. Like, I could see, I mean, I don't know how old Juan Mora or Seth Nitzel are, but if they're older, I could see them tightening up in those situations and be like, and then Herrera, he's young and dumb enough to be like, let's do it. And he does it.
And that's how I feel watching Nate Schon. I'm like, he's just gonna do anything. Like, he's not questioning it. I love it. I love those types of guys.
Yeah.
I think it'll be an interesting time in Tulsa. Overall, how do you feel? Like, gut feeling, how you feeling?
Gut feeling is third place is great. Finish third. It is what it is. Half your lineup's out. Get Evan Frost the title. Get Paniro Johnson the title. Have Jacob Frost wrestle in the finals. Get MJ Gaitan back on track. See if Kysen Terukina can't get third. That's pretty much where I'm at. If Aiden Riggins gets it, great. If Nate Schon somehow steals a bid, great. But I think third place is super reasonable. Get some bonus points where you can get bonus points, and see what you can't do come March. We're in March. Come NCAAs.
Yeah, that's fair. I echo that. I find myself feeling like the sneaky thing that's going to happen is going to be like Kysen Terukina. But
I love it.
I feel like I might just be like in the clouds about that one.
Yeah. We'll find out. Hey, you might be right. You might look like a genius.
Hey, if it happens, I'm going to be annoying on Twitter. No, I think it'll be great. I mean, the Big 12 grew, so now there's some new teams in the mix. I think it'll be exciting to see how some of these guys do overall. I think for us huge wrestling nerds, right, this is truly the pinnacle of this is fun. This is the fun part, right? Like you said, regardless if Iowa State's wrestling in some of those championship matches, I'm locked in. I'm ready. I'm excited because this is where we get to witness some of the best wrestling of the whole entire season. So,
yep.
It's time for the madness. And of course,
the matness.
Yes, the matness. And of course, I will be headed to Tulsa thanks to our friends at Fareway, huge supporters of Cyclone Fanatic and the sport of wrestling, which is huge. I think that's a really big deal, and I like to emphasize it because they really are. Their people love wrestling, and that's what we need in this business. This is how we grow the sport, right? People who invest in it. So very grateful to have them not only supporting our podcast since it started, but being able to continue to go down to Tulsa and cover these guys in person, because I think that is also very important in growing the sport. It's just being able to talk to these guys, just one-on-one, face-to-face, knowing how dressers feeling after things. So truly huge shout out to Fareway. Super, super grateful. Sometimes it's not so fun being face-to-face with dresser when he's really mad, but that's neat. That's still grateful to be there. Hopefully we don't have too many of those. Hopefully it's a fun time.
Yep.
I'm excited to be back down there. Tulsa's, I'm so familiar now with it that I don't need to. I'm fine if it stays there forever at this point. At least for the conference, I should say.
Yes.
Ben, final thoughts before we close this away. Our longest episode, I think, this season.
Yeah, this season. Final thoughts. Yep, I think I pretty much shared most of them. Get third place. See if you can't get bonus points. Bring home 2 to 3 Big 12 championships.
I agree. And Frost, we're looking at you. Nero.
Yep.
Cody Chittum can do it, but
Cody Chittum. That's the third one.
Well,
Bring home 3.
We'll be back next week to talk all things Big 12 championships. I will be sharing updates all over social media as always. I'll make sure you guys know exactly what's going on. And yeah, let the madness begin.